Welcome, Internet, to the second of my illustrations here on the channel. I'm a little bit new here to digital illustration. If you missed my story and how I got into that, you should check out my previous illustration, the one with a nightingale from Skyrim. Anyways, so I'm a little bit new to this, but welcome, and I hope that you enjoy your stay here on the channel. So, obviously this is a cosplay of Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, and just wanted to do a little video and just kind of have some fun here with another cosplay with one of my favorite characters from one of my favorite franchises, the Marvel franchise. I'm a big Marvel guy. So, anyways, for those of you that are regulars here on the channel, as you can see, this is something a little bit different outside of my normal Let's Play content. Again, I'm experimenting and just trying to figure out what it would look like to integrate cosplay and illustration and that sort of stuff onto the channel. So if you're a regular, let me know what you think down below. Should I do this more often? That sort of thing. If you're new, so glad to have you. Again, tell me if you want to see more of this, less of it, if you think I should create another channel that would do my illustrations, that sort of thing. So leave me a comment down below. I love responding to you guys in the comments. With that, my throat hurts just a little bit, so I'm just going to give a quick note on this, and then I'm going to find some good chill hip-hop music or something like that for you guys to listen to and make a little bit of a, I don't know, I'll make some quips here and there. I'll kind of chime in every once in a while when I see something going on that I think's kind of important as far as context for this illustration. So quick note before just kind of get into that. I don't know who this cosplayer is. I looked around on the internet. I could not find who it is, and I really want to. So if you know who this guy is, please send him my way. Let me know so I can give him proper credit here on the channel and on Instagram as well. This image is from San Diego Comic-Con 2015, so it's a three and a half year old image, something like that. So again, if you know who this guy is, tell me so I can give him credit where credit is due. All right, with that, one more little story, and then it'll be time for a little bit of hip hop. So, this is actually of all the illustrations I've completed up to this point. This is actually my favorite one, and I've been thinking about why it's my favorite one. And I think there are a couple reasons. One, Drax is one of my favorite characters. I think that Dave Bautista does a very good job of portraying him, makes him very funny, does a good job in the Guardians movies and in Avengers. So obviously that's a big plus. Second thing, I really enjoyed the tattoos and the scars, or /scars. I can't remember which they are. But I really enjoyed those. I thought those were a lot of fun, very interesting. The other thing that I really enjoyed was the fact that the line art in itself was actually pretty simple for this illustration. But it was the shading and the coloring and all that really made it stand out. So I really enjoyed that. Last thing I would say is that because for whatever reason I felt like I had a lot of freedom with this image to kind of, I don't want to say doctor it, but to adjust it as needed to fit more of what I thought the spirit of what the cosplay was going towards. I don't know. So that's kind of, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. So let me know down below what you think of this cosplay illustration as compared to my previous one, the Nightingale illustration. So with that, talk to you guys here in a little bit.
Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.
found in this less than fashionable cubbyhole at the San Francisco Examiner. These editors are programming today's copy of the paper into that same Ohio computer. When the telephone connection between these two terminals is made, the newest form of electronic journalism lights up Mr. Howard.
Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.
So it's about this point in time where I started doing the highlights and having all the shading going, when I started to realize that this was, oh no, this was basically, to my standards, I was doing very well. I remember this is about the point where I don't know, I just kind of felt that things were going well. This image was really kicking off the way I wanted it to. It's kind of this weird, I don't know, as an amateur artist, as someone who's getting back into illustration, it's kind of weird that I have an image in my mind of how I want this to go, and it's frustrating when it doesn't, I can see it in my mind and I can't execute it with my hand, which makes it all the more frustrating. Anyways, but this is about the time where I started to realize, I don't know, I felt really good about this image. There are other images that I've done where I finish it up and I don't really like the way that it ended up, but in order to do anything about it, I really would have to just kind of start over. But I don't know, I really felt like this was was something that was up to the level of skill that I basically, I feel like this image was at the level of the upper end of skill, the skill that I had at the time. So this is where we start going in and doing the tattoos / scars, and definitely something that was a challenge at first to try and figure out how I wanted to do all this, because obviously these are not 100% accurate to how Drax is portrayed in the films, and so I had to try and figure out how exactly am I going to do these tattoos in a way that honors both the film as well as, classic portrayals in comics, and then what the cosplayer has done here. So I ended up having to go for kind of this, basically the rule that I went for was I'm going to use this base color, this kind of burgundy red, if you will, and use that as the base color, and then use that in every area on the body. And then there will be a lighter color or two that's on top of this. And basically I used the rule that I tried to have the lighter areas sorry, so in the areas where it was dark shaded, the low lights on the skin, that's the areas where only the low lights on the tattoos would also appear. And then same goes for where there were lighter areas on the highlights on the skin, that's where the tattoos would get highlighted as well. I think it turned out pretty well. I'm not sure if it's 100% perfect, but given, the way I try and restrict my color palette and try and keep it simple, I think that it turned out very well. Also doing a mix of the brush tool and the pencil tool here. The brush tool, using that for more of these sharp, jagged strokes that just look like more of cut marks. The pencil tool, using that for the larger areas. Even, again, I'm starting more and more to prefer the pencil tool. That's something that I'm going to learn as I'm going through and doing all these illustrations. But there's something about the brush stroke that there's a feeling or a flow to it that you can't replace, and you can't replicate that the same way as you do with a pencil. So a lot of these marks are coming from the brush strokes, just because those brush strokes carry some weight of, just innate creativity in them, if you will. So anyways, I'll shut up now and let you get back to some chill music.
Turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.
So it's about this point when I finished up all the tattoos and stuff from, and I just found some gaps here and there, particularly on the wrist. So this is when I just kind of went in and did my own thing and tried to match the same style and symbols, trying to get it to be equal as to some of the other stuff that we saw on the body. So with that, it's starting the face paint. This was definitely face paint. I guess it would be face paint for the cosplayer, but not for Drax. Anyways, so this was a little bit of a challenge, but it was one of those things where I just kind of sorted it out as I went along. And that's one of the other things I'm kind of learning with illustration, is that there's a lot that basically one of the best ways, it's kind of like writer's block, right? So with writer's block, it's just like, I know I have this big idea, I know I have this project or this paper or whatever it is, this blog post, but getting started is difficult. And what I've found with writer's block is that a lot of times the easiest thing to do is to just start writing, and just start writing the things that you know, and just start and once you start doing that, everything else kind of follows along. And it's kind of the same thing here with illustration and with this face paint. Is just kind of, it's not going to be, the best thing that you can do is to just start putting strokes on the page. And once you do, then it'll start to come to life and it'll start to take its shape, and so it's kind of just like this idea of just like, do what you know is right to do, and it'll start to fall into place. So, it's just kind of this idea of like, okay, I know I have hard lines here and I'm not sure about this place just yet, but I'll leave that for later. I'll come back to that once I've really started to get into the flow of where I'm going to be putting these markings, or where I'm going to be putting, these highlights and that sort of thing. So, now we're getting on to the second level of the tattoos. And again, this is where I kind of had to start making some decisions about what level of shading each level of tattoo would have based on their position on the skin. And so the idea was that if a tattoo kind of like sort of goes into a darker area, into the lowest level lighting, then it could like one level higher on the tattoos could kind of bleed into there, but not, it wouldn't go all the way in. So it'd just be kind of like a very small thing. So there will be some examples of that here as we go along. But again, it's just kind of this idea of do the things that you are sure that you know you want to have them, done that way. So this is about the time where I institute that rule, is just kind of saying, okay, if this is how it's going to look when it's lighter, then you can see we've got some of these darker areas where it doesn't make sense for the lighter color of the tattoo to be present in the darker area of the skin. And so I think it's actually the next level up where I start to implement that. So that'll happen. But again, just kind of this idea of eventually, like, you'll know what's right as you start doing it, and as you start experimenting, as you start trying. So another just little thing that I'm learning here as an amateur artist.
As it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get the service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.
Town in this less than fashionable cubbyhole of the San Francisco Examiner, these editors are programming today's copy of the paper into that same Ohio computer. When the telephone connection between these two terminals is made, the newest form of electronic journalism lights up Mr. Howard.
Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get the service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.
Alright, so as we're wrapping up the second level of tattoos, I thought I'd just share a quick story with you guys. It's a story from earlier this year where I went to Playthrough Game Convention. So it's a gaming convention in Raleigh, North Carolina. Generally sometime in like late February, early March. And I took my brother-in-laws, two brothers-in-law, and a friend. And so we were walking to the convention the first day, and I promise this connects to the image. We were walking to the convention, and just a normal Saturday morning. It's pretty quiet downtown, and we're up pretty early. It's like 8 o'clock or something like that, so that we can get in line and get good, get swag and all that sort of stuff. And we're just walking across the street. Four, regular looking dudes. We're not small. We're not like crazy looking either. No visible tattoos. No, didn't look like gangsters or anything like that. Didn't look like we were like out to harm anybody. Just like four dudes in like nerdy t-shirts and stuff. And we're walking down the street, and we get to a street light, and so we stop and wait. And this gentleman, probably in his like early 50s or so, comes across the street. And as he gets to the corner, he stops and he pulls something out of his like his hoodie like front pocket. And at first, like this little red light comes on, and the first thing is like a laser pointer or a flashlight or something like that. And then all of a sudden, it starts to spark, and it starts to spark and crackle and pop real loud. And like we realize he just whipped out a taser, and so we scatter right across the street and just like give him like the stink eye, and he's just like, I don't know. I'm not sure what he was doing. He just like pulls it out of his pocket, tests it for like 3 to 5 seconds, like while there's 4 of us just waiting nearby, and then keeps on walking. And we're just like, what in the world was that? And so we nicknamed him Taserface from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, because we're just like, there's this old, just kind of, disheveled looking, I don't want to say old. He was middle-aged, disheveled looking man, and he just walks across the street, pulls out a taser, like maybe 10 feet from us, and then just keeps on walking by like it's nothing. So we almost got assaulted with a taser before we even got to the game convention. So we dubbed him Taserface, and we basically quoted that the entire weekend. It's just Taserface. So it was a funny story, and always look back with that with fond memory. Like, it's funny afterwards, right? It's one of those stories where it's like, haha, we could have gotten seriously assaulted. It's funny looking back, but I don't know. Anything with Guardians of the Galaxy makes me think of that time with Taserface and how I almost got electroshocked.
In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.
Meanwhile, across town, in this less than fashionable cubbyhole at the San Francisco.
So here we are starting the, I believe, the last level, I think, of the tattoos. And again, this is where you can start to see I'm getting much more hard about that rule of where the highlights enter. Highlights basically only allowed in an area where it's, of course, highlighted, or an area where it's like the skin tone that started with at the start of the illustration. So being pretty picky about that, just to kind of, again, accentuate those areas that are in the sunlight, that are getting that, you know, that high level of light, and kind of give a little bit more body and dimension to the character.
Sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.
So this is one area where the highlighting rule that I had, I was experimenting with and kind of applying it a little too hard and fast. And we'll see here as I start adding more and more lines, but it's just like this, it doesn't like the source image when you look at it, these facial lines are very pronounced. And I start to just kind of, right here is about the time where I break it off and I just say, okay, it's time for us to, like, how does it look far away? And then how does it look if I just use this color sparingly? And honestly, it doesn't look as good to hard enforce that rule of where I allow the highlighted markings. So that's where I kind of just broke it and I said, okay, for the face, I need to do something different. And this is one of the things that I'm learning to do, excuse me, when it comes to the illustrations, is just that I need to do, obviously okay, I'm going to make two contradictory statements here, but hopefully you understand. Obviously, like, for the illustration, I want to stay faithful to the original image, but at the same time, I also need to understand that there may be things that I need to change or sacrifice from the original image in order to do what's best for the end product. And it's kind of like, it's this delicate balance of, I still want it to be a representation and clearly inspired by the original image, but I can't make it like, I'm not a realist illustrator. I'm taking these images and I'm bringing them to, like, I'm infusing them with a little bit of their original, like, color book, like, I said color book, geez, comic book I'm infusing them with a little bit of their original like comic book feel and comic book look, rather than staying true to exactly what was done in life. So it's kind of like like cosplay is taking a character from a game or an anime or something like that and bringing it to life, and that's transformative. And then what I'm doing is I'm kind of like almost taking that representation, I'm bringing it almost like back a little bit towards the original and bringing it back towards the animation and the illustration, and like kind of pulling it back towards this in between, if you will. So it's kind of an interesting I don't know, kind of an interesting dilemma that I had to kind of sort through. And definitely I think a lesson that I learned that was pretty valuable is that there are going to be times when it looks better and like the image is going to just like come together much better if I don't always stick hard and fast to the original that was there. So the other thing that I'm doing here, as you can see, is obviously trying to put together and get the eyes just right. The eyes in the original image were very piercing and very, I don't know, just very cutting, like this very cutting blue color. And so trying to do a combination of a few different things to really portray that emotion and that feeling there, and then also doing the lips. This is kind of like the final piece, if you will. Is trying to get the lips to look just right so that they look very, I don't know, dimensional, if you will. And I try a few different things here, like these cut marks and stuff, and they don't really come out the way I wanted them to. So ended up with this as the final image. I added a little bit of a red border around it as well, and so that's where we ended up. So if you liked it, please let me know down below. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have anything to say. If you want to support the channel, Patreon and Teespring are available to do that. You guys can donate as little as $1. And let me know down in the comments if you think there's anything else that you would like me to draw. So until next time, thanks for tuning in.